Welcome to Swenglanese, the only podcast talking the language of business here in the Middle East. Your hosts, Barry Lee Cummings and Oscar Andermo, give you their own insights, as well as interviewing business leaders in the region to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. Barry, Oscar, let's talk Swenglanese.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to this episode of Swenglanese. It's my pleasure to welcome Margeri into the virtual studio this week. Margeri, how are you?
Very good. Well, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us, and from across the sea as well. So I really appreciate that with the time difference. And I've been really looking forward to speaking with you because of what you're currently doing with your business. But what we tend to do on the podcast is ask our guests to go back in time a little bit to the beginning of their professional journey and just tell us a bit about who is Margeri and how did you get started in what you were doing, and then bring us up to today. So it's your chance to take us back in time and take us on a professional journey.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely learned about myself when I thought about this question. But in a nutshell, I actually like to start with the fact that I'm born and raised in Estonia. Mm-hmm. It's a small country in Europe. We only have 1 million Estonians. And in fact, we have our own language. And lots of people say it sounds like a Harry Potter language. So I was thinking I'm going to try it out, and you're going to let me know if that's true or not. Okay. So I can count to 1 to 10, and you let me know your feedback. So It goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, I can see where the Harry Potter thing comes from there. Yeah, a little bit, definitely. Yeah, it is. And there's only a million. Only a million of you.
I like to say I'm 1 in a million. It's like but I absolutely I'm so proud to be Estonian because we are tiny, but we're feisty. Yeah. Definitely a spiritual country, which I will get to later on. That's how I've been raised. But as for what has shaped me is also the fact that I was born in Soviet Union, which means my parents, they were still students, they were struggling. We didn't have anything. And they had to become very, very creative in order to support or provide food for the kids. I was the oldest one. Right. And from an early age, then we didn't know it's called entrepreneurship, but they came up with new ideas, such as they had to sell dried roses in a market, or a bunch of other stuff and get a little bit money here and there. And it ended up becoming that my parents, both of them are entrepreneurs. Right. So because I don't even know when the word entrepreneur became famous. It wasn't that long ago, but definitely not 30 years ago. Yeah. So I've been actually grown up with this mindset, how to be independent, find new solution, be creative, be patient, and especially my dad. I really respect him. He has shown me the ropes, even though it's been hard sometimes because he always says I want to run before I walk, and my recent company has definitely showed me better walk first. But I definitely, I came from a family that is entrepreneur. We're hustlers. I'm the oldest, so I always had to take care of others, which is also the trait I have, a personality trait to always, you make sure everything's good, be organized, take care of not just myself, but others. And this has helped me in my grown-up journey of being quite successful at what I'm doing in general. Yeah. So that's a little bit about where I come from.
It's amazing, yeah, which is great. Like you say, I think back then it wasn't called entrepreneurship; it was just called getting it done and doing whatever needed to be done. But like you say, it was something that has obviously been ingrained in you from the beginning. But if I'm right, you didn't immediately go out into entrepreneurship at the beginning of your career. You started in organizations. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and in terms of maybe why also that was the case? Because a lot of our guests, they go into corporate, they do something, and then they decide to come out of it. But you say your parents were doing what needed to be done. You could see that was coming, but you made some decisions once you got through education. So can you take us back to your sort of the first roles, I suppose, or first companies that you joined and why you joined them?
Well, Estonia became very small to me quickly because I needed more So I went to London, like where else, right? It's a very attractive, big metropolitan. And let's be honest, it was very difficult in the beginning. It's a very expensive city, but I got lucky. I was very like feisty when it comes to meeting people, finding jobs. And mainly why I did it was because I was so curious, it comes from American movies and it sounds crazy, but I wanted to I have this office life, I have this what you see in the movies. And in Estonia, you can't really have this, right? We don't have big, massive buildings like in Canary Wharf, or you name it in New York or whatever. Yeah. So I had this vision, like I want to wear high heels and pencil skirt and go to meeting rooms. And let's be honest, they definitely manifested that. So I ended up like doing this, especially last like 5 to 7 years. I was in a corporate where I had to give presentation to a room full of bankers. I was wearing high heels and pencil skirts, and I thought, wow, I made it. Well, I mean, that was just my first chapter. But I did get a lot of exposure with variety of industries. I was like from domain broker to like working in a data center based in Iceland, to then taking care of the biggest banks in the world, such as Morgan Stanley, Citibank, Credit Suisse, you name it. Right. I've been definitely climbing that corporate ladder, if you will, and especially male-dominated industry. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of
that side of things.
My journey. Yeah.
Did you get to go to Iceland physically then, in terms of that role that you were doing?
Yes. So my roles were always like business development, in the beginning marketing, but sales. My last role, I became a sales director in a multi-million-dollar company. So let's be honest, I was doing well, and my job was to host the clients, meet them. So in data center in Iceland, we had a flat, I had a car. And when we had big clients coming, I was driving them around and showing where is the 100% green energy comes from. That was the fun part of job. Yeah. So I love Iceland, by the way. I highly recommend going there. Very spiritual country as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen it on TV programs, and every time I see it, I think, well, that looks beautiful. I wouldn't mind going there. But yeah, very cool in terms of that job as well, from the sustainable energy standpoint and that side of things. But this is all from your corporate days. You're in London, you're in different cities and countries around the world. Then you somehow, the Middle East comes into this picture. So how does that come about when it comes to your journey?
Well, how it worked was like, what happened was that not only that I saw lots of inequality in the corporate, and as I said, I was always very fierce, feisty, which actually that's the reason I was successful in male-dominated industry. But I saw so many of my friends, my female colleagues, who couldn't really stand for themselves, so much like, less pay, the way they treated in the conference room, like always like somebody that has to bring the coffee, which I'm still getting very upset about.
Yeah. But understandably, yeah.
But, yes, and then, in fact, I have a girlfriend. She's a successful CEO. She runs her own company, and even now, when she's meeting an investor or something, she's a petite blonde woman. They still think that she's just a secretary, even though she's like, no, you came here for me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, that's crazy. But anyway, I was like that was always rubbing me the wrong way. And I was all about empowering women. And then, last years have been difficult with everyone's having little spiritual evolution on their own. I realized that, wait a second, is that my dream, what I'm doing? Am I going to do that in the next 3, 5, not to mention 10 years? And the answer was no. So I had to have a hard look at what is my time worth? Because at one point I saw that the corporate is literally subscribing my time, right? In return to a paycheck. And let's be honest, my paycheck was very nice, meaning like I had all the perks you can think of and so on. But I just like, wait a second, I'm going to live a long life. We're not living short anymore. We're going to live a long life. So I better choose wisely now. And I made a decision that I'm going to quit my job. It was literally overnight. And the moment I chose it, I was hysterically crying. Like I was crying. And it wasn't sadness. It wasn't excitement. It was a shock, because I've decided, like, this is my life. This is my life work. And I'm like, but what about you being independent? What are you doing? And I'm like, well, no, this is not independence. I'm literally dependent on the check.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I made this decision. It was difficult, but and I quit London as well. I mean, like overnight, I was like, I quit my job. I pack up my stuff. I'm like, I'm going to do something different. I wasn't sure yet 100% what, even though this idea has been like, the empowerment has been inside of me a while, the woman empowerment and spirituality. I've grown up with spirituality. I practice spirituality. That also goes into it. But I came to Dubai. Because Dubai, let's be honest, it was just so welcoming. I was during the times when it was very difficult in lots of countries and cities handled the situation very poorly with their big lockdowns and restrictions. Dubai did extremely well. And not to mention now the UAE government, they're supporting female entrepreneurs, female-owned businesses. I firsthand, I've noticed it, I've seen it, which I can mention later of like the support, what I've been receiving. But I came to Dubai. It was very easy to open up everything. And also, let's be honest, the UAE at the moment, I mean, in general, is very spiritual. It's religious already. And they're more and more, they're like hungry to learn more about the mindfulness practices, the spirituality practices. Not to mention all the Western world and rest of the world has been coming to Dubai because it's the place to be. On top of everything, fashion hub. Oh my God, I had no idea before, but Dubai is definitely where the best designers have come together. So having my company, KimonoGirl, in Dubai at the moment is just can't think of a better place. Let's be honest. I got lucky.
Well, yeah. Well, you say that, but you tend to make your own luck and put yourself in the situations to take advantage of these things that are happening to you. But let's get into that then, because had you been to Dubai before you came? When you made that decision overnight, had you been here beforehand, or this was just like you had? Okay.
I have actually a while back where actually it was different energy. I must be honest. And I was offered a job and I didn't take it. I'm like, no, it's not working for me now because I'm all about energy. That's why also the company. Go with the energy, right?
Yeah.
And now I actually went to Dubai for a holiday and I got stuck there because Dubai was put in a red list in UK. So they didn't let me come back unless I paid the hotel quarantine and so on. I'm like, listen, no, I'm going to work from here. And then, I being there a few months as my visa allowed, I realized that, wait a second, I shouldn't leave. So I came, that's why I came to London. I quit. I said bye. I gave away my furniture, my everything, and I just came back,
Wow,
it's
amazing.
As simple as that. Yeah.
As simple as that. That's cool. That is incredible because there's so many different paths to follow, obviously, from that side of things. So, but that coming to that, you obviously you made a decision. You came here. You realised that okay, this is where I want to be. Where did the idea well, first of all, KimonoGirl is the business. So tell us a bit about the business and the product, and then we'll get into how this became what you're doing right now here in the UAE.
Yes. So KimonoGirl is an energy fashion brand. Have you ever heard of something like this?
No, and this is why I was really, really interested, because when I read it, I scanned through it and I thought, energy fashion, and I didn't read it in detail. And then when I did, and I sat and I said, that's not what I thought. That's not what came into my head when I read it. So no, the answer to that question is no, I've never heard that before, and I've never heard of anybody doing what you're doing, which again is why it's so fascinating for me to speak with you. So tell us more, KimonoGirl.
Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. But by the way, I didn't realize that it doesn't exist when I started it. It was like a passion project, which now has become a business. And even since now, not even one person that I don't know, and I'm asking, have you heard of energy fashion? Nobody knows. Oh. So, but it's also bad, it's not just good, it's bad, because I'm literally doing the educational part of telling people, wait a second, this is now available and you need it.
Yeah.
So I actually encourage, when people ask me, do you have competition? I'm like, I wish, so I don't have to do the legwork alone. but I do like, there is more. It's called also, I call it energy fashion, and I have such a good feeling we're gonna make it big, right? Because everyone needs healing, and we call it healing through clothing. But also there is this fashion karma trend in a rise, where people are cautiously buying clothing to have a positive energy or then spiritual comfort, which only later on I saw it, but they don't use the term as energy fashion. So we, well, shall I just tell you what we do exactly to make it? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, because it's fascinating. I watched the video and I was like, oh, interesting. So yeah. So please tell us more about it, because like I say, it's a really interesting point. You don't have any competition, which means that you are leading the way. You would like some competition because then they would also take on some of the burden. But you also have this unique opportunity because you literally are shaping your market, and that is obviously super exciting. So yeah, please do go into detail about what it is exactly that you're doing.
Yes, so we basically make magical clothing to empower people by giving them a superpower. And lots of people say, what superpower? And namely, we have all our kimonos are elements. The first collection is elements. And, every element has their own properties, which is very strong. We've used them from ancient times to use them in our balancing, healing, mindfulness. And whatever you need in your life that time of moment, like either grounding or a transformation or and so on, you should choose that kimono, which then whilst wearing it, you will receive the properties, the power. And not only that, how the process works is that we're working with a family-run, woman-owned business in India. Everything is handmade, and before they starting, they are doing a little prayer, so it's already intentional. And then we also embroider mantras inside of the lapel. Every kimono has a different mantra. It's here. I don't know if you see it. I'm wearing a earth kimono today. Right. And it has a different vibration and meaning. And then we also have a sacred ceremony with Reiki master or energy master, where we then charge the kimonos with high frequencies and pure energy. And finally, every kimono comes with a letter from the universe, which then holds the instruction how to activate your kimono with your own energies. It's super important you do it with your own energies. That's the intention there. Plus, there is also affirmations to follow. And I can promise you, your life will change the better. Like we've seen it already. And it's the whole unique concept.
Right. That's amazing. Like I say, it was intriguing when I saw it. It's incredible. It's something that one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because the whole energy side of things is something that I'm half English and half Chinese. And so from the Asian side of my family, we've focused a lot on the West, but more and more I'm leaning towards the East and the mystic, if you like, or the energy and the spiritual side of that side of things. So this is one of the reasons I was also really, really interested. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, though, is that some people out there will and I've encountered this, they will always look at it and go, oh, that's very woohoo out there, they're just trying to use a gimmick to sell something. How do you approach that kind of thing? Do you look at them as, well, you know what, they're not my customer, so I don't need to worry about it? Or do you want to really help them and educate them? How do you approach that?
Well, actually, I'm not pushing on anything, right? I mean, if you're not interested, you're not interested. It's more about when it comes to you, and if you're open to it. We believe that the energy fashion only works when you have pure intention of what you want to get from it, because it is magical, right? So it's your cape and armor. When you have an important day, either date or an interview or you name it, you will put it on, right? It can be your own secret, or you can also, share it with others, or you can just, wear it at home. It's about charging yourself and feeling limitless and healing by that. It's almost like, whilst we do also put high frequencies on it, sometimes it feels like some people, it's more like a placebo effect for them as well. It's about self-belief,
Right.
And more and more, I think now, as for the numbers which have been digged up, over 40% global customers are buying things that are either sustainable or eco-friendly, or like a special energy boost for them.
Right.
It's crazy. So I'm not pushing on any energy to anyone, because at the end of the day, it's you have to be ready, and if you want. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I thought that would be the case when it comes to the business and the commercial side of things. You think, well, you know what? There are lots of people out there who would purchase if they understood, but
Exactly.
you can't force them to understand. They actually have to go on their own journey to get to the point where they realize, actually,
Yeah.
this is something that could help me, and I believe that it can, and therefore it will.
And just to add, it's like, as I mentioned before, this energy fashion, nobody like has heard of it, and when they hear, their eyes sparkle up, like there is a connection, like by default every time, even for non-believers, even though, usually I start asking, and I'm going to ask you now, well, do you believe in energy?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely, you already said so. And we as well, right? Energy is literally everywhere, and for non-believers, it's scientifically proven that energy is all around us, and it's so important to keep it positive, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, whilst people sometimes they don't believe it, but yet they do act and treat their life as they believe it. Like, oh, they're so like, oh, I can't cross the road now, or like, oh, this person gives me a bad feeling. I'm like, this is energy,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, this is what's called energy. And whilst there is different ways to increase your energies, like you name it, yoga, meditation, clothing is no exception. It's like it's about how we express ourselves, how it makes us feel. So you better choose your clothing cautiously. It's like self-care. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So on that side of things, let's say, how does it work from a scalability perspective? Because, or maybe I'm wrong. It must take time to create these special garments, and so is it a case of somebody ordering and then there's a waiting period, or if there was to scale up, how would that work from the business perspective? Is it because, like you said, it's a personal choice, I guess, for each and every customer. Once they reach that point where they're, this is for me, is it a case of then they make that decision, they place their order, and then they have to wait a while, or how does it work from that side of things?
So actually, we have currently the first collection is already pre-ordered. As I said, it's 4 elements. There's a vision behind it, lots of thought and love gone into it. So they can just go to the online platform now and order it from there. Right. It will be shipped from Dubai. We have a place there within literally 3 to 5 days time, and then depends how quickly the DHL delivers. But going forward, of course, we're thinking of maybe doing something more bespoke, because what we do offer though is also personal energy charging. So we have partnered up with some great energy healers locally in UAE, and if you want to have an extra boost, or you want to be energy charged the kimono when you're wearing it, that's completely doable.
Right.
So that's like step by step. We're still a startup getting there.
Yeah. No, of course, but it's interesting to also understand how, because you, like you say, you've already planned these things, and coming back to sort of, I get lost in the conversation, but coming back to what of our listeners are kind of looking for as well, is that journey element, so that you've already, we've done our first collection, and then my next question around that is that obviously the brand name is KimonoGirl. Is it going to only be kimonos, or is it going to expand, or what does the future hold for the brand from your perspective, Margeri?
Yes, definitely expand. The name came because I was the kimono girl. My partner used to call me a kimono lady because I was wearing kimonos all the time. Right. And so I'm like, no, let's call it KimonoGirl. It's quick and effective. But I've been asked that a few times, because also men are coming to me and saying, I want to be empowered. And we have actually one kimono that is unisex. In fact, it looks super, super good on man. It looks like a true Japanese samurai. You should check it out. It's a water kimono. Okay. And we, not already, we are also selling for man, by the way, but in the future, we are thinking also jewelry. I mean, jewelry is more already done, but anyone that wants to have a little piece or something, always carry with them, and also have energy infused with all these extra magical steps. We're thinking of that as well. But kimono as such is it's It is a cape and it's an armor, and it's like you can throw it on at home or so on. So kimono was like a perfect platform for us to use for the healing, you know.
Yeah. And was it something, the kimono, you said your partner would always call you the kimono lady because you were always wearing it. Was there some particular reason that you were attracted to that particular kind of clothing from Japan? Is there a reason behind it, or was it just that, I like them because they're comfortable? Is there anything there?
It was because, kimonos I was wearing only when I was on a holiday, usually. As I said, I had all my corporate clothing. And then on our holidays, when I was wearing it, it is flowing, right? So when it was windy, it was blowing, and I felt like a goddess. I was barefoot, and I'm like, wow, this is true empowerment. Not me high heels, but this right now with this kimono. So that was the moment actually when I realized, oh, I want to give other women the same sensation I'm having right now. So the kimono was like when the light bulb goes on, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna make kimonos for every woman, but we're gonna make it special, because you can't just give the sensation just like that. You have to be in the right space of mind. But this is how it started. Yeah, I mean, I personally think kimono is very cool. The modern kimono. I have also classical ones, but the modern kimonos, you can style them anyhow you want, and it's making a massive comeback. Not even comeback, it's just disruptive in fashion industry at the moment as well.
Yeah. It's interesting to see the influence of the East on the trends at the moment, and I think, like you said, it's got to be in line with a lot of people's. The last couple of years has shone a spotlight on our lives and whatnot, and the pandemic and lockdowns and isolation and all of this kind of stuff. People have started looking at themselves, and also that they're the other side, if you like, of them, their spiritual side, or their also just the well-being. That a lot of the things that we've had to endure over the last couple of years are not really healthy for human beings, in terms of us being social animals and needing other people and feeding off other people's energy. And then we've all been said, right, everybody in your house, stay in your house, don't even go outside. That's got to have had an impact. Yes.
So, I mean, as I mentioned before, I truly believe we are living in a spiritual evolution right now, and the global consciousness and the teaching of self-care is expanding. Because everyone realized that the true happiness comes from within. So we need to work on ourselves. And with all this technology and, time to sit down and think about your life is massively, again, disrupting who we are. We want to turn this around. We were all been on the wheel, and now wait, this is actually in my heart. I know it's not the right way. So any kind of new ways to kind of find balance and healing and mindfulness in your daily life is so welcome. People are so hungry, so I definitely see that more changing.
No, definitely. I 100% agree. And a good time to be in the market to help people with that from that side of things. Just to go back to one of the things you raised earlier, focusing on the UAE as the place to start your business and do it. And you said you got a lot of support from the UAE, from empowering women business owners and stuff. And I obviously a guy, and I see these things and see that there is a huge support for it, which is fantastic. I firmly believe it should be in place. Can you tell us a little bit about the support that you've received from the powers that be in terms of building your business here in the UAE?
Well, absolutely. I think the energy in general has changed, because I can feel and see also my other fellow entrepreneurs how the government wants to, help us and support us. It was very easy to open a company, bank account, you name it. But most importantly, the female networks in Dubai, it has if I may, I would even like to mention a specific network which it's called Female Fusion, and they have made a big difference. In fact, I don't think I would be here right now without them. They have opened a massive doors for me, from radio to, last week we were in Forbes Middle East, and it all started from the fact that I signed up to be there. I cannot endorse them enough. And they also, are a big movement and supported by the government. So this is one of the main things I can think of. But and the one thing more is like the fact that I feel equal. I feel that I've been supported, and I respected. That's the word. As a female, yeah. So I'm also now, when I'm coming to visit like Western world, like when I'm in Europe and so on. I now am a big endorser to Dubai. I'm like, oh my God, everyone should move there. It's like so great.
Which is fantastic. I think it's great. I also think it's really important for people to hear that message. Having been here for the last 16 years and in and out for longer, because my family's been based here, the perception of people I talk to outside of this region is that you wouldn't feel like that as a woman. There's a lot of all of the Middle East gets tarred with the same brush, that it's women are not respected, they are viewed as a second-class citizen. Having lived here and been here for such a long time, I know for a fact that that's not true. But I think it's really important for people to hear that also, that you as a successful businesswoman, feel the opposite, that you feel that you are supported, that you feel that you are respected, that you feel, and I think the word that you use there is really important, equal. I think that's so important, because it's, we as men also know that realistically the time for male leadership and everything is done. Really, we can see that that's happened, and then when we actually tune into our feminine side and actually listen to some of the very important women in our lives, that they're usually right, as much as we don't want to admit it, that they have a different viewpoint and they see things that we don't see. And so I think it's so important for people, especially in this part of the world, to understand that if you're thinking about doing a business and as a woman, that you don't have to worry about some of those things that maybe are there at the forefront of your mind as a woman. So I think it's a really powerful message actually that you have there, and a really great one for this part of the world, because I feel that as an entrepreneur as well as a business person, that there is a very specific kind of energy in Dubai, in the UAE, when it comes to doing business. There are obviously idiosyncrasies of this part of the world, but actually everybody that's here is open to talking with you and understanding what it is that you do. And when you tell them that, I'm an energy fashion brand, people are going to say, what's that? And be genuinely interested as to what does that even mean, and listen to the explanation. And I think that's the more that people can understand that, maybe the more that people would be comfortable with planning and to take those steps to start their own business, because at the end of the day it's an interesting journey that it's not necessarily for everybody. But as with all of our guests, when I talk to them and our listeners, is that if you are thinking about it, then there's no better time to do it and get out there and into it. So yeah, I agree. But, on that note, there's one question that I always like to ask of our guests before ending, and it's in line with the personal journey that you've been on from making that decision overnight to, I'm done with this corporate life in London, I'm going to go and do something else. Are there any tools or resources that you as Margeri would recommend people go and check out that you use personally? Either books or anything really from that side of things?
Well, I always done the spiritual teachings, learnings. I definitely feel, because I was so comfortable with myself, it was easier to make the decision. So what I would want people to do, or do a call up for them, is like, do take the time for yourself. Either go to yoga class, do a Reiki course, or read books, as simple as that. And people think, I will do it. No, it's nothing. It's like, I will do it, but they're never doing it. It's a massive work. I, for example, just to before I was about to quit as well, I was in Nepal. I lived in a monastery with monks in silence. And whilst it was an aggressive move, it was so necessary. So if you need enlightenment, let's say, or this shift in your life, you have to do something like that. And books are not enough, even though if I would to recommend one book, which was my Bible and still is Power of Now, the Eckhart Tolle. Absolutely love this book. Always going back to that one if I feel restless. And one mantra as well, which I use since forever, is I'm in the right time, in the right place. Because it's so powerful, because then you always end up being in the right place in the right time, which opens up all the new doors, opportunities, new people, and it's working. So these are the few things.
That's amazing. I think that's really cool. That last one actually ties in with you saying that earlier on in this conversation, you said, no, I've been really lucky. Well, I think that if that's your mantra, then you've made sure that you're in the right place to be, in air quotes, lucky. You're where you need to be every time you need to be there. And it's amazing. I'd just like to say that really appreciate the time you've taken to speak with us on this podcast. I think what you're doing is incredible. I'm going to stay in contact and following you because it's such an interesting market space to be in, and you're at the forefront of that. You're leading it and shaping it. So it will be interesting to see how that transpires over the coming weeks, months, and years. But again, thank you so much for your time, Margeri. Really enjoyed talking to you.
We have to get you a kimono too. Next time you can wear it.
Oh, for sure. I'd be down for that. I've got a couple of my Chinese robes that I don't wear very often at all in the wardrobe. They just sit there. But it would be cool to get one. And I definitely wear one. And then we'll do another interview and we'll both be wearing them when we're a few months down the line. So
next time we see each other, we both wear kimonos, okay?
Sounds good to me. That's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Margeri. Thank you. And to everybody listening, thank you very much for tuning in. As always, if there's anyone that you would like us to speak with, drop us a line at wishlist@swenglanese.rocks, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Swenglanese with your hosts, Barry Lee Cummings and Oscar Andermo. We'll catch you next time.